Hey there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for yet another episode of the Chelsea transfer talk. And finally, a day where it feels like being a Chelsea fan again. Not like feeling a mid-table championship team where you're linked to the most random players no one has ever heard of. We're linked to some actual players for one. I'm not even saying I necessarily want all of them. And we're also negotiating sales of our players to actual clubs. Do you know, Atletico Madrid, not flipping Strasbourg. Do you know what I mean? So, at least something actual transfer newsworthy happening for once. Chelsea have also announced a new away kit. Enzo Fernandez has rejoined with the squad. Is everything fine? Is it not? Will there be a suspension from anyone? We will discuss it. We will see what's happening there. But of course, the big one, we will talk about it in more detail a little bit later on. Let's a few more people let the stream fill in, basically. But big Ornstein bomba, as we like to call it, about Victor Osimhen, and now we're basically playing an aura duel between David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano, because the one saying the one thing and the other one saying the other thing, and it's like clash of the titans. Do you know what I mean? Like clash of the titans in a transfer world. But I am, as you can see, joined by Pys and Dimitar. Pys, thank you very, very much for joining me once again. Like I say, we'll get into more detail of the Osimhen news a little bit later. But just to start it off with, is it just me that feels like today finally feels like normal Chelsea transfer window day again, or have you felt like that for more of this transfer window?
No, this was the first day where I felt like, first off, just like in terms of busyness, like nothing actually official happened, but sometimes you get these days as an aggregator where you think, okay, like, yeah, things are really heating up now. And then I know it was only really Gallagher and, you know, we have Osimhen news, but just didn't expect either, really. Like, I know the Gallagher thing is kind of, you know, like with Atletico, they're there, but I didn't expect it. It seems kind of advanced now, like Fab's kind of saying, and, you know, Atletico just kind of waiting on the player now. So, see if he wants to join. So it seems really good in terms of that end for that deal, potential outgoing. And then obviously the Osimhen deal is, there's so many different angles to it, which we'll discuss. And there's so many different news from different journalists. You're kind of like trying to piece together, is this going to happen? Is it actually not? Is it just talks? You know, is it just general transfer window stuff that actually happens and sometimes doesn't get reported and sometimes does? So, but yeah, this day has been well, it feels kind of crazy anyway, so it must have been.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit crazy. We started off at like, what was it, 9 a.m., 8 a.m. that the Gallagher news first came out. Do you know what I mean? Like, we started early and we didn't slow down. Dimitar, thank you to you as well for joining us. It's been a little while, so I hope you're well. Similar question to you, man. Obviously, you and me, we've been more, let's say, on the pessimistic side of things towards Clearlake and the situation. Pys swings a little bit without me trying to call you a flip-flop at all. Pys, I think, tries really hard to be optimistic and positive, but sometimes the pessimism comes through a little bit. So with Pys, it's like sometimes this, sometimes that. I'm a little bit like that too. I feel like I'm kind of in between you guys. But has today felt a bit more normal to you as well, Dimitar? I don't know. Like, I'm not even saying all of these things will happen, but at least it felt a bit more normal. It felt good. I don't know. What did you think about today?
Yeah, definitely. It reminds us of the Chelsea of a couple of years ago, where just like one day randomly you get linked to a couple of players selling, buying, where the fan base gets excited. This for sure is the truth. I feel maybe they just found some money in an old wallet or between the couch cushions, because seemingly this comes out of nowhere, in my opinion, because up until now this summer, we basically didn't want to spend big, and we were just using these excuses of, oh, we don't want to pay high wages, we don't want to pay so high transfer fees, and blah, blah, blah. And I personally thought it was due to not being able to sell any players. So either they are very confident of selling both Chalobah and Gallagher, which already touched on a bit, or they really found some financial trick elsewhere, so they can just like splash 70 million plus Lukaku on Osimhen. So it felt kind of like the Chelsea of old, but with the new plot twist of the new owners probably still not knowing what they're doing.
No, probably not. That was literally what I was going to bring up as well. I'm not saying it directly is impacted by that, but somewhat maybe. Like, and I'll ask you as well, Pys, on that. Do you think like that potential advancement on Gallagher being sold is part of why there's kind of moves going ahead towards Osimhen? Obviously, the whole Lukaku situation plays a big role as well. Like, why we are potentially ahead of PSG in trying to get him is we have the guy that Napoli want to replace Osimhen with. that obviously puts us in a good position. But also, let's not ignore Chelsea are very desperate to get rid of Lukaku, like permanently. So it's like if doing a deal with Napoli for Osimhen is one of our only ways to make sure we get rid of Lukaku permanently, I think that could also play a factor in why they might be more willing to spend a bit bigger, maybe give him slightly higher wages than they might have been otherwise, because otherwise we might be concerned that we will be end up being stuck with Lukaku again. So, but do you think that both of those factors could be playing a role, or do you think it's genuinely just, well, Napoli slightly lowering their demands, I suppose?
Well, I'm not sure because like Lukaku, the Lukaku angle is interesting because obviously I personally feel like even if he didn't go to Napoli, I feel like eventually later on in the window we could hold out for a Saudi offer because Saudi are definitely. I think they're the club.
Is he now willing to go there? Because obviously last year he was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, he is because he said publicly he's like started bigging up the Saudi league. So I think it was like a month or so ago. So I think he's more open to it now than last summer. So I feel like later on in the window we could get quite a bit of money, but it's just the thing is as well is like how long do we want to wait? Lukaku's just come back to Cobham. He's around some of our players in the gym. Like we don't want Lukaku at the club. Lukaku doesn't want to be here. So find a solution, and that solution is Victor Osimhen at the moment because. You know, we've got a player there. Yes, we don't want to pay stupid price. We don't want to pay stupid wages. But if we can work something out, then I'm sure something could be done. I think that's probably what they're trying to do. But again, I don't know. I'm like probably like 50-50 on it. A slight pessimism at the moment, just because I feel like the wages are they're very high, and I don't know whether Chelsea are going to say, okay, right, 65 million or 60 million pounds plus Lukaku. There you go. Let's do it. Because I feel like if Chelsea want to do the obligation, it could very much happen. It could happen, this week. It's not that hard. It's not a hard deal to do because you've got two players. Like usually when you do a swap, right, it's very hard to do because you've got to sort all the parties out and there's so many agents and, player side, sometimes it takes a long time to personal terms. With this, no, you've got Lukaku wants to go, Osimhen wants to go. So it's much easier. It's just whether Chelsea, one, have the money to put down right now, and two, if they did do like a loan plus obligation, can they finance that in a way? Because like obviously the money would come out next summer. So another good point is if we did do an obligation, I feel like we'd look for an even lower price than 60 million because then he'd be on 1 year left of his Napoli contract. So Chelsea could either come out with a bargain here if he does really well, or we could shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit.
Do you see us ending up going for a normal obligation to buy? Obviously, there's been a little bit of chatter about an obligation if we make Champions League, for example, because obviously if we make Champions League, we will be in a better position to have the financial capabilities to pull the deal off. While if we're not in the Champions League, we might find it a bit more difficult, right? So it's a really tricky one to judge. And also on just on another note, because you're talking about swap deals, do we really think, or do you really think that it could be like, okay, this and this much money plus Lukaku, or like more like usual in recent years, while in a way it may be a swap deal, it's going to end up being two separate deals, if that makes sense? Because if we just add Lukaku onto buying Osimhen, that doesn't give us any money for Lukaku, meaning don't we still have to pay off the amortization of his deal when we signed him? Because if we just add him onto a deal, we're not getting any money back for him. So we're not covering the remaining amortization. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm like, I think it's much more likely that it's going to be, we get Osimhen, they get Lukaku, but it's almost going to be like, I don't know, a bit like, well, we didn't end up signing anyone for Villa, I guess. But, well, no, we did, Kellyman. So, we get Kellyman for 19 million, they get Martin for 35 million, rather than being a swap with a bit of money. It's two bigger deals back and forth. How do you see that one, Pipe?
Yeah, two separate transactions for like the accounting purposes. Could happen. Fabrizio's completely denied the loan plus option. He doesn't want to go on loan. He doesn't want to have a possibility of going back to Napoli and Chelsea not buying him. So that's why I said to you earlier, I feel like if it's an option, it's basically an obligation anyway. You might as well just, it would have to be structured in a way where kind of like, where Lewis Hall's one, it was kind of like, I think that was briefed as an option, but it was basically an obligation because it was like a set amount of appearances or whatever, so it was very basically, it was an obligation. So It's hard to know what happens right now. Fab's just said nothing imminent, won't happen tomorrow, won't happen Thursday. So I mean, it doesn't exactly say it won't happen over the weekend or something. So I don't know. Like, it's a hard one.
I would focus on that more because I'm like, even if he was like, okay, it could be happening, the likelihood that it's happening tomorrow on Thursday is very minuscule, I would say. Like, this is still a big deal. As much as you're saying it's not that complicated to pull off, it's still like it's a lot of money involved. Like, it's not going to happen within a day or two, is it? So especially when everybody's quite clear. Do you know what I mean? Like, as far as I know, Osimhen has been is part of Napoli's preseason but hasn't been involved in games. So yeah, it's a tricky one. We'll get into more detail into it a little bit later. I know we spoke more about it than I had initially intended now, but here we are. Let's talk about Chelsea's away kit, shall we? A bit random, but it's interesting because I like it. I've been very critical of the home kit, even though I think the home kit with a sponsor, and people will say I'm an idiot, but no, I actually said that from the first day. With the sponsor, it will look a bit better because the pattern will stand out less from the whole thing. And I do think that seems to end up being true. I find it a bit weird that they're promoting the whole thing as like everyone's unique, but turns out the stadium version, the player versions, they're actually all the same. It's just the stadium, the cheaper version that are supposedly different. So who knows?
Oh, okay, so that's the deal. I was wondering about that personally.
Yeah, seemingly anyway, because we looked at the player pictures and their shirts were all the same. But it seems like, they're very much the stadium ones. They claim to be different. I mean, I haven't bought two, so I can't tell you, can I? But yeah, that's all of what I know so far. But Dimitar, what do you reckon about this one? I've made it very clear on here, on Twitter, whatever. I love a simplistic kit. I like this a lot. And I would love if, like, the orange in the away kit, fine. I don't like the orange in the home kit because I'm like, what the fuck is orange doing on a Chelsea home kit? On a away kit, perfectly fine. This off-white kind of like beigey cream color, whatever you want to call it. I know the color some people have a bit of an issue with, but I'm like, do you know what I mean? Compared to the home kit, I'm not going to complain about the color too much. So I'm a big fan. Obviously, this one I think will look worse with the sponsor on it than the other one because I think it kind of takes away from the lovely simplicity. But yeah, where do you stand on it, Dimitar, this new away kit?
The design I absolutely love. I think the design is, like I said, it's very simplistic, very elegant. I love the colors. The only thing that literally makes the hair on my body stand is the plastic badge. This I just cannot stand this plastic shiny badge. I don't know why they just didn't make an orange or a blue version or an orange/blue version of the badge and just sew it on there. Apart from the plastic badge, I think that the design is probably perfect and probably maybe the best designed Nike kit I have ever seen for us. Mm-hmm. I know maybe this could be a big statement, but I really like the design and the colors and everything apart from that badge. I just can't stand plastic on kits.
Yeah, obviously I'm wearing last season's kit, right? And that had the plastic badge as well. Because it has this like gold orangey shimmer on it, you can see even if I move it, like it looks a bit different. That kind of saved that one a little bit, but I had that very same issue last year, and it's the same on the new home kit. It's the same on the away kit.
The thing is,
I don't like it as well.
This is an orange badge here. This is like a 15-year-old kit, and I think that this color scheme would have also worked on that kit, or maybe a little bit darker orange or something like that. I don't know.
Slightly different. Yeah, no, I agree. I'd much prefer a stitched badge, but I'm going to try not to let it ruin it in the rest of it too much.
Apart from that, I really like this design. It's really
very nice. Pys, where do you stand on the new away kit? And also, has your opinion on the home kit changed a little bit since the initial release?
Yes. Yep. They always do it to me somehow. I genuinely think, like, I looked at the home kit and I was like, you can't get a worse home kit than this. Like, what the hell are these patterns? Like, what's going on? And I actually kind of like it now that it's on the players. I don't know why. I always do it to me. I don't know how. I don't mind it. This away kit, I'm like, I do not like the badge color. I mean, what even is this? Like, you can hardly even see the lion for starters.
You can absolutely not tell which badge this is. This could be the badge of Strasbourg, and you will not be able to tell the difference from this angle.
Obviously, these pictures are taken in the studio, so like, I'm sure in person the badge is a bit more clear of what it's supposed to be, but I get what you're saying.
Well, everyone knows what their badge is, but like, I just don't like, you know. I feel like if you showed that to a brand new fan and said, "Look, this is Chelsea's badge," they'd be like, "What? I don't like Chelsea's badge." So, yeah, I don't know. I
But I
don't
feel
really
like
like
on away kits and third kits, that's okay if that makes sense. Like Dimitar showed us that was a third kit. I think what was it? Was
orange
that
and the
the?
blue doesn't.
I
The
think this was
orange,
the third kit in the 2010-2011 season. Yeah, and it's
I think
orange,
so.
and
Yeah,
it's
exactly. So
No,
on
but
the
I like
third
that
kits on
one,
the away
though.
kits, we've done that in the past. So I don't mind it on those, but I agree that because on the home shirt, obviously it's not quite this same color as on the away shirt, but it's still not the actual original Chelsea badge. So yeah, I agree, especially on the home shirt. Why you're messing with the badge? Like
I
that's
don't
the whole
mind.
point.
I don't I don't mind like Dimitar's kit, for example, because
Yeah.
there you've got the black lion, so it's more stand out. Whereas this is the orange lion, right? It doesn't look like, I don't know. It's just, yeah, I'm nitpicking, but it's all right. It's all right. It's not
Yeah.
horrendous. Is what it is, isn't it? I don't know. It's okay.
It
Don't
is
have
what
much
it is.
more.
Exactly. Let's not get too hung up on a kit, but hey, I certainly prefer it to the home kit. So
and
you know,
also it
it's
looks
not
better
typical
with
on
the
one
shorts. With the
Yeah.
shorts, it looks better. The away kit, the shorts are literally the worst. The home kit, the shorts are the worst thing about it. They look silly for me. It's like the bathing suit of
although
a
I feel
9-year-old.
like I agree with you, but at the same time, if the home kit shorts were just plain blue, I think it would also look weird. Like
Oh
because then
yeah, but
the transition would be too strong between just a plain blue and then the whole pattern. I also think you know how we spoke about on the player version, the back where they have the number and the name is plain blue without the pattern. I initially thought that is great, but then I saw it in the games, obviously against Wrexham and against Celtic. And what I don't like is when you see it from the back, that you have the actual back plain, but you see the back of the sleeve on the arm that still has the pattern. So then when you look at it from the back, it's like you have the patterns on the sleeves, but then not on the back, and that also looks a bit weird. But hey,
I actually liked that part. I don't know, maybe I'm
Okay.
weird, but I liked that visual on the back. It looks cleaner for me on the back, but yeah, that's another story.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong. I agree as well, but I just wish the sleeves were then also plain. But if the sleeves were plain, then that would look stupid from the front. So it's like, just don't make silly patterns, and that solves the problem. That's why I like simplistic kits. But there you go. Someone in the chat said Gallagher to Atletico. Here we go. I'm not sure if that's quite true, but this came out this morning, potentially biggest news of the morning. And hey, you know, the morning, we'll not count the Osimhen stuff as the morning, so we'll go with it. But Atletico Madrid are in official talks with Chelsea over a deal worth, well, let's say roughly 30 to 35 million pounds, including add-ons for Conor Gallagher, as it says per Fabrizio Romano. Pice, where do you stand on it? Where do you stand on this one? I will let you speak before I share my thoughts on it as well, because I'm intrigued what you think, because obviously you've been a bit more open to selling him than I have for always really, but also now. But even for me, it was like ever since we signed Dewsbury-Hall, it was just inevitable that Gallagher would get sold. So at least since we signed Dewsbury-Hall, I kind of got used to the fact that Gallagher will be sold. So I'm a little bit less upset now than I would have been like a month ago. But yeah, what do you make of that? Him potentially going to Atletico Madrid, and of course the fee as well.
I mean, from what I've seen so far in pre-season, like technical wise, no, but like defensive wise, tracking back from like one of those advanced 8 positions, I think he'd actually be all right. I think he'd work quite well in like the tactical setup. And I think he does with most managers.
Play him against the good teams, like your Arsenals, your Cities, your Liverpools, and if you play him against those, would probably be better than playing anybody else.
Defensive wise, yeah, I think he'd be good. But you know, it's clear that he's not in the club's plans. It's too cheap, you know. Like even Matteo Moretto was saying something like 25 plus add-ons. He's very cheap, but you get into the stage now where you either, in my opinion, you either sell him to Spurs, and no one likes that, for a little bit more money, or you send him to Atletico, and everyone's like, okay, you know, it is what it is. We don't have a rivalry with them. He's not at a Premier League team. Yes, it's a little bit cheaper, but you get some money, you add it into, you know, the transfer kitty, and you move on. Like that's how I see it. I'm not really going to complain about the fee right now. I just want sales. I need money in the club. Like, especially if we're going to go for Osimhen. Like, look at our squad size as well. Like, he's got like 40 plus players. I did a tweet yesterday or the day before, and this is all from like the Fabs and the Ornsteins. There's 14 players I counted, 15 including Sanina, that have been like proper rumored to be leaving, like nailed on, Leeds are leaving. Would be surprised if they stay, either loan or permanent. There's 15 players. So, like, we need to get our asses into gear and start selling some of these guys, you know? I don't know if you can get that tweet up from yesterday. Or
I'm just looking for it now. I'll have it in a second.
Yeah, it's like a day or so ago, and I did it. It was I titled it "Outcome."
Yeah, no, I've seen the tweet. I just need to go find it.
Yeah,
not,
you tweet a lot.
Yeah. I do.
It is true. Pies does tweet a lot.
But I was like, I was thinking to myself, like, because everyone's going on about our squad size. I was like, hang on a minute, let me just sit back and have a look at our squad and see which ones have been rumored to go. I mean, and Slanina, so it's 15 players. And these are all reasonable price tags as well. And I added up about £175 million we could raise. We've already raised 90 million. So nearly £300 million worth of sales if we actually get our asses into gear. That's a lot of money for sales. You know?
It is a lot of money. Obviously, not for all of them. It's pure profit. I agree with you. Like on the fee. Now, I do think and I do wish that we try to get a bit more out of potential add-ons, maybe even difficult add-ons if must, but try to get a bit more out of it because I still think like, yes, sure, I know the Spanish teams don't have that much money, but Atletico Madrid are not no one. They have one of the biggest and best stadiums in Europe. They have, you know, they're ginormous club in the Champions League every single year. That from the city of Madrid. It's not like they're, I don't know, some small city club. Do you know what I mean? Like they're huge. Don't forget wages saved. I assume you mean on what we see on screen in general, because Gallagher's wages are not the issue here. Gallagher's wages are the least of the problems here. But yeah, so on part of me, I don't want to complain about the fee because, like you said, Pies, there's a bit of English tax, or not a bit. There's English tax when you sell within the Prem. And I'd rather not sell to a Premier League rival. Well, if he went to Everton, I wouldn't really be that bothered. But first of all, Gallagher doesn't want to go to Everton. And also, with Gallagher's takeover falling through and whatever, can they sign anyone? Who knows, right? So, on that sense, I'm much happier for him to go into Atletico Madrid. And I agree with you. Excuse me, I agree with you. I'm not going to complain about the fee, but I do want people to keep the fee in mind because, well, certain Clear Lake sexuals keep talking about how they do everything great, when other than Mount and Havertz, everyone has been sold for undervalue, in my opinion, including Ian Martin, Lewis Hall, all of them, in my opinion. I know people will disagree with that. I don't really care. That's my opinion. So don't complain about it in the fee, but still realize it's not a particularly impressive fee because he was our second best player last season. Let's not forget that. He was our second best player last season. He captained us for a lot of the season. He had 17 goal involvements. I'm not sure if that's just in the Prem or in
all competitions. That's in all competitions.
Okay, was it all competitions? But still, 17 goal involvements is good. And he played some of the season as a 6 as well. Like, I know he played as a 10 a lot, but he also played as a 6 sometimes. And still, he had 17 goal involvements. One of our best players, is always fit, is still fairly young. To only get 25, 30 million out of that is a bit of a joke, if we're being totally truthful. Like, let's not forget, we're signing 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds from all over the world for nearly the same money. Like, this
or
new
for more money.
Mike Penders. Yeah, or more money, obviously. Like Mike Penders, some random 18-year-old goalkeeper we might sign for 20 million euros. Like this Anselmino, or whatever his name is, the Argentinian centre-back, we are signing him for 20 million. Like, you know, it's insane that we're not getting more money for Gallagher. I know last year of the contract and everything else, but like, you know, you could have tried to give him a new contract. He would have said yes, but you were too stingy to give him a decent contract, so now you're screwed. But yeah, Dimitar, where do you stand? And is the fee something for you to complain about? Are you just happy that he's not going to Spurs or not going anywhere else in England? For me, I'm just happy that he's getting a move, which I think is a good move. First of all, I think he suits Simeone ball perfectly. I also think that will be a club where they appreciate players like Conor Gallagher. So I'm happy for him that he hopefully gets to experience that. And also, well, he's going to play Champions League and absolutely dunk on anything we do in the fucking Conference League. So, you know, big of you, Conor.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fee is absolutely laughable, in my opinion, because even if you consider, yes, last year of the contract, yes, they're trying to get rid of him, still, he's, like you said, going for the same rate as some 19-year-old who's never played a minute of professional football in a decent league. So it's I don't know. This whole transfer is just frustrating for me because I know that this is done for accounting purposes. This is not due to footballing reasons. No one, neither Maresca nor his coaching staff has called the board and said, I don't want this player. Because I am sure if you ask Maresca, he would find a use for Gallagher, even if not be a permanent starter. He would be useful during the season because we do not have a lot of players with his profile, and we do not have a lot of potential goal scorers from midfield, to say the least. I mean, we basically have none because we don't know what Dewsbury Hall is going to be like in the Prem, or if he plays even. And we know that Enzo and Caicedo will not score 17 goals or 15 goals or even 12 goals next season. We can probably guess that, even if they have good seasons. So we are losing a hard worker who scores and assists goals sometimes. So I think in general I'm disappointed by the transfer from the Chelsea standpoint. From the Gallagher start point, of course, I'm happy for him as well. He's going to play Champions League and he can prove himself. Because in the Spanish league, if you play for Atletico, basically all of the spotlights are on you. Because when you play Barca, when you play Real Madrid, everyone will see you. And if he plays good, people will appreciate him. If not, they will not. But I guess this is his chance to realize himself, and also this is our chance to get some money, because it would be worse for the club if we let him on a free. That also has to be said. So
100%. No, it's true. See, Pys, one last thing on Gallagher here. Do you find it at all surprising that I think we seem equally as adamant to get rid of Gallagher as we do of Chalobah? So why do you think it's Chalobah was so specifically told, you're not part of the plans, please leave, you're not joining on preseason tour? I know Gallagher isn't joining on preseason tour either, but that's because he was with the Euros and Nides Cucurella and Nides Palmer and stuff like that. Why do you think with Chalobah they were like, okay, so you're not part of the plans, leave, but with Gallagher that's not happening? Or do you think that will still happen if these kind of deals aren't coming through? Like, I find it ridiculous that it's happening for Chalobah, obviously, but if you're doing it for Chalobah, why are you not doing it for Gallagher?
So doing what, bro? Sorry.
Just the whole, how they told Chalobah, well, you leave, you're not allowed to go on tour, you're not part of the plans, play with the under-21s. Why are they doing that to Chalobah and not Gallagher when they seem equally as desperate to sell both?
I mean, if Gallagher was planning to go on the tour, I feel like we probably would have done the same with him as well. He's back at Cobham, so there's not many people there. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's been told to find another club anyway for his agent. Probably, I would be very surprised if he hasn't. To be fair,
it's weird, isn't it? Because in the interviews around the Euros, whether that was with England or post games, he was asked about Maresca and excited to work with him, this and that. Like, obviously it's an interview, so he's not going to say the truth. I'm aware of that, but the way he spoke was still didn't sound like, there's a good chance I won't be there anymore. So it's maybe he just didn't want to get into that in an interview. But yeah, it just didn't feel like that, which I do still find a bit weird. But yeah, if he ends up going to Atletico, I'm happy for it. And to be honest, I think we at the Shed should send them our banner of Gallagher. So at least someone else can get some use out of it as well. That would be quite fun. But yeah, enough about Conor Gallagher. Let's get into the big one, shall we? We kind of spoke a lot about it already earlier. We'll talk about Enzo Fernandez' return to the squad in a little bit as well. I'm just trying to find the main tweet about it from David Ornstein. And the crazy thing about it really was mostly that initially it was tweeted, then the report from the agent came out that no, there's no loan deal happening, and Fabrizio was kind of going with that. Then Ornstein pinned this tweet to his page, which is kind of like, I stand by what I said kind of move. And Fabrizio tweeted or pinned like a tweet that suggested it's not going to be a loan. But Pys, I'll come back to you on it. How do I best word this? So supposedly, Osimhen would prefer us to PSG. PSG are the other team that are trying to sign him, but they also don't want to pay his current release clause of 130 million euros. But PSG don't have the player that Napoli want. Now, could they try to convince Napoli of taking Gonzalo Ramos off them? Maybe, but seemingly they're not particularly interested. But yeah, I mean, do you feel like this could happen? Because this is David Ornstein we're talking about here. Like, we could probably count that off on one hand the amount of times that David Ornstein has been wrong in his career, let alone in the last month, let alone this transfer window. Like, it doesn't happen very often that Ornstein is wrong. Now, what Ornstein isn't saying it's happening. Ornstein is just saying there's conversations happening and it could happen. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, like CJ says, that's because the agent wants his fee, because obviously PSG would probably pay him more and do this and that, and he probably has negotiated with PSG already to an extent, and he maybe doesn't want to honor his own, negotiation, I suppose. But Ornstein saying this, like, is there really a chance this could happen, Pies, or do you still not really believe it?
I don't know what to think at the moment, to be honest. Like, I think honestly it's up to Chelsea. Like, I really do. I feel like Napoli are prepared to do a deal. I feel like if Chelsea, raise the money through obligation or permanent, even separate deals, like you're saying, I think it will happen. But I don't know. I'm not Winstanley, so I can't tell you directly. I do have a little fear though that PSG, they may be seeing all this and they may think, Napoli going to lower their price. Like, let's tempt them. Let's go in with 70 million or something and see if they accept. And then if Napoli accept, because Osimhen wants to go to PSG as well. He just wants to go to PSG, Chelsea. He's accepted both. So I feel like it could be a situation next few days where PSG come back in, they buy him, and then Napoli go with that money and they go and buy Lukaku off us permanently. Because I struggle to believe that Chelsea would want to lose over £30 million on Lukaku as well. Like, I know it gets the Osimhen fee cheaper, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm still worried about PSG. To be fair,
I hear that. You know that how there was the report that Osimhen supposedly, even though like you obviously highlighted importantly, that he's also accepted PSG and that he's in theory also happy to go there. But reportedly, I think it was Ben Jacobs that said that he would prefer Chelsea to PSG. But to what extent does that preference exist? Because presumably PSG would offer him bigger wages than we would. Like, obviously Chelsea hasn't got that far with him to, I think, to that point of the negotiation. But that's kind of the questionable thing. What's his wages at Napoli? Price like 250k, I think, already now. So
someone needs to help work this out with me, right? So Fab said it's 9 to 10 million pounds net per
that he's
season.
Earning at Napoli, or that he wanted his next club?
Napoli. No, at Napoli. And he keeps saying that's a big salary, but I don't think that's a big salary.
Well, it is in Italy.
They say net.
If it's net, this means probably it's something about 16 million pounds or 15 million pounds should be in the UK for the club, so he can get around 10 million net. So this is a decent chunk, I would say.
I mean, taken down or divided down by 52 to a weekly wage, because it's 9 to 10. I went with 9.5. That would be 180 grand roughly a week, which until 2 years ago, that's not even close to a worrying wage.
I'm sorry,
I just to a worrying wage.
Sorry, I just don't. If it's like 180, I just don't believe Chelsea would find that too much. Like, they know they have to pay for certain players. Like, this is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting on the lines of ridiculous here. Like, what's fucking? I mean, we give so many other. Like, we've got
that's nearly half of what Lukaku is getting at Chelsea.
And that's the thing. We're getting Lukaku's wages off the books by doing this. We've got Sar's wages off the books. Like, surely there's wiggle room there. Like, you can't just expect Osimhen to come for like 130 grand. You're in fucking dreamland, Like, you're not living in the real world if that's the case.
So,
you may as well not even bother if that's your expectation.
One question: are the normal wages we discuss in these things and Pies on Twitter, are they net always? So when we say Lukaku gets, let's say 300, it's net?
I think so, but I'm also not 100% sure. I remember when Lukaku initially signed, Fabrizio saying he earns £12 million, I think, net a year. So whatever that then is, if you calculate it down, because I think it depends on the country people are operating in. In some countries, most reports are in net. In some countries, the most reports are in gross. So 12 would be 192k, or are you saying that the 10 million would be 192k? So yeah, I just find it weird. Osimhen needs to be earning as much as Sterling to net 10 million a year. Would he? I doubt that. Unless the 325 that Sterling earns is also his gross salary and not his net salary. That's essentially the question that Dimitar posed.
Because if the wages we are currently paying and which are quoted are gross, then Osimhen is basically in the same range, yeah. Because let's say £300,000 per week would be roughly what Loss calculated a couple of minutes ago for net, around 190 per week net.
Exactly. I mean, Shawshank here with the donation, I appreciate it. It says 300k net a week for Osimhen. But what are you trying to tell me? Like, that's what you think will happen? That's what you think he's asking? I'm not quite sure, because gross, maybe, but net, that's definitely not 300,000 euros a week. Definitely not. Vic is saying that's Sterling's gross salary. I mean, you say that, may well be the case. And maybe Fabrizio is just trying to sell it as, I don't know, Fabrizio may be a cheeky fucker. Do you know what I mean? When he says 9 to 10 million net. And he knows, well, then Chelsea fans can complain it's not even that much. Just because Chelsea fans don't know that the 325 that we hear for Lukaku and Sterling is actually gross. Like his gross salary, not disgusting. It is also disgusting, but yeah.
Doing a quick Google search says that, yeah, probably all of the wages we're discussing are gross. So Lukaku is earning, according to some reports.
Why does Fabrizio run around posting the net salary then?
I don't know. Maybe
because, like I say, he did that for Lukaku as well when we signed him. So, but then again, it's both with Italian clubs. So maybe the Italian clubs, they work in net salary. That could also be the case. Obviously, don't know. But obviously, also the taxes
are different. Yeah, they're vastly different. Yeah.
So like you can't just say, okay, what's gross to net in Italy is not. I'm not saying it's drastically different, but it's going to be a bit different. Yeah, I'm not sure if people were aware.
Maybe that's the reason, because if you're trying to negotiate, also it would be easier for the player to say, "Hey guys, I want this and this as a net salary. You deal with the tax. I just wanted to get this." So it kind of makes sense, although it's very confusing. This also has to be said for the average fan.
The player would negotiate in net salary because they care about what they get, not what it costs the club, essentially. Dimitar, let's get into a conversation about, do we actually want Osimhen? Because I think that's also not something that we should completely ignore. Because part of me thinks yes, obviously. Part of me thinks no, obviously not. And part of me is somewhere in between. It's a weird one, because on the one hand, I think Jackson has done more than enough last year to have warranted being first-choice striker going into a second season. Because what is the point of constantly signing young players if after a year of them being here and a year into their young player development, you buy players that essentially go ahead of them and halter those young players' development? So if after 2-3 years you sign someone else to put ahead of them, fair enough. But after just 1 year, I just think that's too much. I just think it's too quick. But then obviously you have the option to potentially be playing Jackson as a winger and Osimhen as a striker and have both in your team, because we're a little bit in a situation where we're not really that sold on any of our wingers, really. Like, Mudryk has his issues, even though Sterling looked good when he came on in the second half against Celtic. Sterling also looked good in pre-season last year. Sterling also looked good in pre-season under Thomas Tuchel, and then he didn't look good in any actual season. So Sterling is maybe just Ross Barkley, who's just a pre-season merchant. That may also be the case. Noni Madueke is like, okay, mate, does he get that chance? We don't really have another right winger now. I don't know. Dimitar, where do you stand on that?
I think generally you hit the nail on the head. You just said it. Why do we keep buying 21-year-olds if after 1 year of experience and progress, but on their side we just replace them? And I think this is the main problem, because according to what Pys retweets daily, we're not only looking for a striker but also for a right winger, and not one or the other. We're looking for both in most reports. So if we assume that's the truth, and we get Osimhen and another right winger, let's say, then what does that mean? Not only for Jackson, for Noni, also for Mudryk, for example. And I don't know that. I just find the entire thing a lack of transfer vision and a lack of coordination with the coach, because I just don't see Maresca saying to them, hey, I need this and this, I need this second, third and fourth goalkeeper, I need you to get rid of Conor Gallagher for me, and I need you, for example, to get rid of Chalobah for me, even though I have no competent center backs. And the whole story, these are whole different pieces of the same story. I just still think and know that they completely ignore the coach input, and this is a big problem, because if they get Osimhen, even for the low fee of 70 million plus Lukaku, this is still a marquee signing. And as I have discussed in our group chat, this will mean that he will have to play every single game, which is basically another player who is shoehorned in the system, and the coach would not have the option to bench him even if he sees that it doesn't work. Because I can guarantee that if after 7 or 8 games, Osimhen has scored 0 goals, Maresca will not be allowed to bench him, because then there will be outrage on Twitter and in the fans and in general. But if Osimhen doesn't score goals and Jackson is on the bench, still there is going to be outrage. So I see this as only as a potential problem. Now, if we talk about Osimhen as a player, sure, a good striker, has proven himself in Italy, did relatively decent stuff in the Champions League. So as a general club signing, this would be great. But the question if we need him is a very good one. Because in my opinion, the sensible move is to just buy a cheaper striker as a rotation option. Because options are important in attack, and we don't have that currently. But buying Osimhen just means you have less options because you will have to start him every game. So that's basically what I think.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because that's why if we could get a loan with an option to buy, which was obviously also something talked about today, again, not saying super likely, but as you can see on screen, it was David Ornstein that brought up an option to buy, not an obligation to buy. That would put us in a position where, okay, sure, you're still in a situation where you kind of have to start him if you have him. But if it doesn't work out and it kind of flops, you can't just pull the plug. And you're not
that is true.
With essentially another Lukaku, where you're like, what are we going to do with it? Even if Osimhen isn't going to say something like Lukaku, but then again, who knows? Like, Osimhen has had some crazy off-pitch issues with Napoli. Some of them caused by Napoli, some of them also caused by Osimhen. So it's very, very difficult. I've got an image up here which compares Nicolas Jackson and Victor Osimhen's 23-24 seasons. And as you can see, Osimhen is the dude in pink, Jackson is the dude in blue. So yeah, on non-penalty goals, he's ahead. On XG, he's ahead. Everything else, okay, ever so slightly in aerials, but that's also a bit of a league difference there. But everything else, he's a lot worse. So obviously, play styles of the player, play styles of the team, play styles of the players around him obviously makes a difference when you look at stats and try to compare them like this. But I just kind of feel like if we're gonna have to pick one big name signing, if that's still a possibility, right? I think we'd be better off getting a big name winger than we would be getting a big name striker, personally. But the problem I have is I'm not sure if in Maresca's system any winger is gonna be like, you know, crazy amount of goals. I'm not sure, like, even if you put Salah in to Chelsea now, obviously, if you ignore Messi, Salah might be the highest scoring winger ever, I think. Like, he can't be far off, right? So, but even him, with how the system under Maresca is, with the wingers being supposed to remain with the touchline most of the game until they get into the very end of the final third, and then sure they can cut inside or play, link up play with number 8 and the striker or whatever. But you're not gonna like. You're not going to score 20 goals as a winger under this Maresca system, no matter who you are, I think.
The only type of winger probably is a Robben kind of type who would always cut in to score the goals. But like a natural fast-paced winger, let's say, like the way Jackson played sometimes on the wing for us, would never score 20 goals. Or even Noni, for example.
Now, what Tony is saying, and also Otto is saying it as well, won't you compare Osimhen's previous year? Laurenz now get Osimhen's 22-23 graph. The problem I have with that is it's not 23. So we're not like, do you know what I mean? Like we're not signing Osimhen from 2 years ago. We're signing Osimhen from now.
Yeah.
So
Laurenz, can I just intervene here though? Like I agree with them. I think last year Osimhen really, and people will say, oh well, does he need creativity to thrive? Like this is a penalty box striker, right? Osimhen with a fully fit Kvaratskhelia in the 22-23 season got how many goals? And that's just one real creator. Look at them this season when Kvara got injured, right? That link-up went away. Osimhen still got a decent amount of goals, but no, it was like half of what he got in the 22-23 season. So,
and how much did Lukaku get with Conte 4 years ago? Just out of curiosity, didn't Lukaku also score like 28 goals for one season in Serie A?
I didn't say he was going to succeed there, bro. I was just saying, like, apply some context, in my opinion, to the graph.
The context
No,
is that last season he was injured and out of form, if we see this graph. So we're signing Osimhen from last year. I know what you're saying, but saying, okay, this player had a great season 2 years ago, so now he will surely have the same season is, I find zero logic in that.
I'm not. I'm saying he missed one of his biggest creators last year, hence why he suffered goals-wise. So, yeah.
I mean, I agree with
fact.
you,
You can't deny it.
what we're looking at right now, and like I say, you are right, but what we're looking at right now isn't just the goal output. What we're looking at right here is what they bring as a whole player.
But what does this tell us anyway, though? Like, what does this
last
tell us?
Season, he brought a lot less.
But what does this tell us, though? Because we already know that Jackson used to be a winger, and we already know he's a very good all-round player. But he's not as good as finisher as Osimhen. He's not going to get as many goals, in my opinion, as Osimhen will for Chelsea. So what do? Do you sacrifice some link-up play for more goals, or do you want the all-round link-up play and chip in elsewhere and hope other players chip in elsewhere, you know?
I'll bring up the transfer market page of Osimhen where we can see past seasons. So the season that everybody's talking about is obviously the 22-23 season when Napoli won the league and Osimhen won player of the season and everything else. 32 games, 26 goals, 5 assists in that season. Last season, 25 games, 15 goals, 3 assists. By the way, 15 goals in 25 games, that's still good. You know, let's not sit here and say he was awful last season. It was still good, just not quite as good. The only problem is this is the standout. Like people, they say, okay, look how, but why don't you compare to 22-23? But when I'm looking at a player, I can't look at their one standout season. I have to look at all of their seasons. And when you just said their Pys, but he's not as good a finisher as Jackson, he's a better finisher than Jackson, and he will get more goals than Jackson. Jackson, age-wise, is about where Osimhen was here. Maybe even here. Right?
Yeah,
like
the teams he played for,
we can't forget that. Who knows what Jackson does when he is as old as Osimhen did in the 22-23 season. Like, that's what I was getting at earlier, where I'm saying, what's the point in signing young players when you don't let them develop to see what they actually turn into? Because
but then this is the same
fan
base
isn't completed by 22. Do you know what I mean?
But then this is the same fan base who says we must get top 4. So what are we doing? Are we allowing players to develop, or? Well,
I'm not saying
that's
because
factual,
I think it's a ridiculous target to have to a squad that we're making worse, in my opinion. So I just think, but I think we've made our defense worse, and I think we're purely hoping that players are going to be less injured, and those players that were injured for a year, that they're going to play as if they weren't injured for a year. But think of players ever that have been injured for a year or more? How many of them did ever go back to how good they were before the injury? Barely any of them. So why are we sat here expecting them all to be world class again? That might happen, but there's a good ask Ben Chilwell how easy it fucking is when you spend 2-3 seasons with a lot of injuries to just be at your best. Like we talk about Reece James, as great as he is, likelihood is he's never going to be as good again as he was in that Champions League winning run. There's a chance that happens. And the same goes for Nkunku. Like he's been injured so much, and they were not just little injuries. Like there were knee injuries, there were surgeries required left, right, and center. Like they might be good again, but they might also not. So I think top 4. Like I'm not saying we can't achieve it, but I'm saying to expect it is silly. In my opinion, it just sets you up for disappointment, really. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sat here trying to say I don't want Osimhen. I'm saying I'm not sure if that's the best place to. That's where we're going to spend big. Do you know what I mean?
But are we spending big though? Like, if it's 60 million, like, what's that in the market? Like, we were going to sign. You know, Desiree Doué is going for Desiree Doué.
I'm signing his fucking Dewsbury-Hall for 30 million.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, like, if you put it into context with, like, for example, young players, like that lad from Rennes, Desiree Doué, he's going for, like, 55, 60 million. He's some winger who's done, he's talented, but he's done fuck all. Like, you're talking about potentially getting Osimhen here. He's got bags of experience. And when he did have that one season where he had all that creativity around him, he got 26 league goals. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I think there's a lot of potential here with the players we have around.
That's making it a bit. Don't you think it's a bit easy? Like it's almost saying, okay, he wasn't slightly worse at all last season. Just Kvaratskhelia was. But if Kvaratskhelia was able to be worse, why wouldn't Osimhen be able to just not be as good as the year before. And JC said last season is Jackson's standout season. That's true, but this was Jackson's second professional season at a serious level. So like, well, yeah, that's the whole point when signing young players. Of course, they won't have many standout seasons because they just have had not many seasons. So like, I get your point, JC, but like that's the difference when you sign a player like Osimhen. You have a bigger data set to judge by, and that's why players that you sign at a more serious age, you're usually much more likely to figure out whether they're going to be good or not because you have a bigger sample size. When you buy someone like Enzo, who was in Europe for 3 months before we decided we want to sign him, I say 3 months because there was a World Cup in between, so that meant he played from August until October, and then Chelsea signed him essentially. That was all the time he spent in Europe. Now, Enzo, I think, is great, but that was a minuscule sample size about is he good, is he not? With Osimhen, you have a much bigger sample size than that. And 1 season was amazing. 3 seasons were good. But Jackson's season was also good. So, I don't know. I also just don't know, like, with Maresca. I know Conor, obviously. You all know Conor, very much a tactico, knows his stuff when it comes to football tactics and whatever else. He thinks Osimhen is exactly the type of striker that this Chelsea team needs. Fair enough. But I'm like, does he? Because from everything I've heard from Maresca, he wants a striker that is very good at being a link-up player and doesn't just want a finisher. So I'm like, is an Osimhen type striker the type of striker that will best succeed under Maresca? Or doesn't a striker that is the type of Jackson suit him better anyway? And that's my kind of concern. And that's where obviously Chelsea have now gone to a stage of football club where the signings are decided by sporting directors. And to some extent that is, I don't think that's necessarily
by accountants.
No, I disagree, because it's still, whenever you think of Winstanley and Stewart, they're not accountants. Because they were in football before they came to Chelsea, right? So whether they make good decisions or not is a different topic, right? They clearly do not 95% of the time. But I'll let Dimitar speak in more detail on it in a second as well. But do you not see where my questions and my concerns come from, Pys? Like, would you not, in theory, prefer a goal-scoring winger than you would a striker when we already have a good striker? While at winger, all 3 that we have in the squad have struggled. And the one that didn't struggle, our new manager doesn't want to use as a winger now.
I don't think, with the situation we're in, I don't think we can go into the season with Jackson and Kunku as Guiu as starting options. Because I don't think Palmer's going to get the same output. And I do think we need a striker. I don't think Samu and Marodian's that guy. So, you're going to pay a lot for him anyway. So if this price is true of Osimhen and you get rid of Lukaku, why not just do that? Like, I do think if you give Osimhen a good supporting cast around him, which I think we will have, then I think he's gonna deliver. That's just my personal belief.
It's not. I don't even really disagree with that, if I'm being honest. It's just, is he going to deliver so much more than Jackson that it's worth the money? That's kind of it. And I get the whole depth thing. I get it, especially as Maresca seems to be wanting to use Nkunku as a number 8 as well. Or maybe mostly, because we've had 2 preseason games. Nkunku played his first 90 minutes for Chelsea. I know preseason, but still played his first 90 minutes for Chelsea and played the whole game as a number 8. He didn't move to strike at any point. He didn't move to wing at any point. He just played number 8. So with that said, I absolutely get your point, Pys, in terms of we need another striker. We can't just have, let's say Nkunku isn't even used as a striker. We can't just have Jackson and Guiu. Like, you can't do that. And your point of the kind of the second choice striker that we have, or Meridian, or however you pronounce his name, is also expensive. So then you might as well get someone better, because if you get someone expensive to be a backup, even more waste of money. But yeah, I just think it's just, there's so much wrong with signing young players, and then before you see how good they can become, you buy more young players. Like, it's just, that's why I have so many issues with how they're trying to run the football club. Because if you sign young players, you need to give that young player at least 3 years to see what that young player turns into before you make a decision about whether they are good enough to be your guy or not. Because if you decide before then, you're ruining their development. So then you're taking the realistic chance for them to become what they could become away from them. Because Jackson's not going to he's not going to develop like he did last season. And look at Jackson the first game of the season, and look at Jackson towards the end. He improved as a footballer. Like, clearly, he got used to the Premier, got used to the pace, got physically better, he got stronger. The finishing may maybe sometimes be a bit better, sometimes be a bit worse. But trust me, you will get that with Osimhen as well when he comes to the Premier League, because the pace at which centre-backs fly knee first into your back, that will change things about how good your finishing is. And it will for anyone, even Lukaku for us, right? Even the first bit of the season, he was good. He was great in the beginning until he decided to give an interview until he got injured. But he also missed chances. No matter how good you are, Haaland missed the most chances of any striker in the league last season. Now, he still scored the most, but he still also missed the most. No matter who you are, you're going to miss chances. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, like, hey, if we're going to get him, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it by any means, because I am extremely hypocritical if I sit here and complain about average signings and then we go for an Osimhen and I also complain. Like, then I literally turn into what people tell me I am on Twitter. So I can't be doing it. But, yeah, I have a few reservations, but at the same time, I can't really control it anyway. So if they do it...
You're not intrigued by the price, though?
Go on.
Like, are you not intrigued by the price? Because, like, if you said to me 100 million, I'd be like, yeah, like, it's very, very risky, you know. But you're taking it down by almost like 50 million pounds here. Like, it's a lot of money taken off the deal.
But are you also then including the 35 wasted on Jackson last summer? Because if we get Osimhen and Osimhen starts 38 games, then Jackson will be done for this football club.
I don't know.
I mean,
and also, how stupid is it when the next AFCON is on, both are gone?
That's also the nice point. But
yeah,
really, I mean,
unless Jackson plays on the left, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no. If Jackson plays on the left, then this makes the whole thing much more valid. But we don't know if Maresca sees that as an option or not. So it's like, that's what I'm saying earlier. It's like, I agree that you shouldn't give a manager full power. Even like, I think that's never a good idea at a club where you change managers too often. Sure, if you're like Arsene Wenger, Sir Alex Ferguson, or Pep Guardiola, and you're staying somewhere 10 plus years, sure, then give the manager all the power. But if you're going to change manager regularly, then don't give the manager all the power. But on situations like this, where what the manager wants to do with what player matters a lot, I think then the opinion of the manager should be very much so taken into account, because it is the decisive factor whether a signing is great or pointless. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit caught in between two minds, three minds, if you want to put it that way. But at the same time, hey, I'd rather we sign Osimhen than we sign Omorodion, whatever. I need to really learn how to say his name. So if we're getting more seriously linked again, I will. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Any conclusive thoughts or any final thoughts on the Osimhen topic from you, Dimitar? Like we've discussed, like, is he better? Is he worse? And also on the whole topic, okay, we're comparing Jackson's standout season. Why don't we compare it to Osimhen's standout season?
The thing is, we can sit here and speculate. We don't know how Osimhen could fit in this Chelsea side, and that's normal. The transfer looked at in a vacuum, and the price, like Pai said, is nice. I think if you just say, okay, we're getting Osimhen for this and this price, and we're getting rid of Lukaku and his wages, if you look at it in a complete vacuum, this is a perfect transfer for all sides. But like you said, and I agree with that point completely, then what is the point then of signing Jackson last summer? And here comes this philosophical question. And I had the same problem. I think we discussed the potential Olise transfer with you here on your stream. And then I said, well, okay, Olise is a great player. He will surely improve on Madueke, for example. But then why do we sign a 21-year-old Madueke? He plays around 18 months, finally finds his feet, finds his form, starts scoring goals, and then we replace him with a bit older version of himself, basically. And
the only slight difference for me in that argument is that Madueke didn't do enough to warrant being clear for number one this season, but I think Jackson did. So I think that's what, because
I agree
Madueke,
also,
I think, showed the level where he's all right to be backup. But Jackson, I think, did more. It deserves to be more than backup.
I agree.
If that makes sense.
I agree, but still, Madueke showed progress. If you compare the first couple of games that Madueke had under Potter back in 2023, the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And do you compare that to the player that we had in the last 5-6 games, who was playing with confidence, who was being an integral part of the team, which won a couple of games on the bounce? I think you can see progress, and you can see progress with Jackson, you can see progress with Gusto, even with Gallagher. Some of these players made actual, tangible, visible progress last year, and now the club is doing everything in their power to just get rid of them. And this is a philosophical problem, because let's say Enzo has a fantastic year this year, and then next year let's say we buy Declan Rice from Arsenal, and then we bin Enzo. Like, then what is the point of that? And this Osimhen transfer just looks like that to me, because they are just seeing these premium marquee signings, and they just want to buy them to get the fans on this dopamine hit to buy new shirts, something like that, or they're just convinced that, for example, Jackson is not the player they thought he is. But if that is the case, then you can't buy a person with one professional season in Spain and expect him to score 25 goals in the Prem. It doesn't work like that.
1,000%. And Fire Red says here, it's just healthy competition, essentially. And I get that. And also,
it's not.
Tony said, why can't Jackson develop behind Osimhen? Well, the problem is that Osimhen is too big a name, too big a player for someone like 38 games is probably unrealistic. But if he's going to start 32 to 34 of the 38 Premier League games, if he remains fit, then there's not enough left. And healthy competition, if you want healthy competition, then you need to get someone similar to Jackson. Then you'd almost be thinking of like
Ivan Toney.
Yeah, well,
for example, for rotation purposes.
Or Meridian, right? Like, as much as whatever we think of him, at least he's in a similar age bracket to Jackson. And then you're like, okay, both on the training pitch, the manager decides who he picks first. It might change throughout the season, better form, doing better in training, and it's a back and forth. But if you get Osimhen, even if Osimhen is terrible in training, terrible in get matches, do you really think that the ownership, if they fork out the money and decide, okay, we're going to give him the big wages, because we have to pay him somewhat big wages, otherwise he just won't come, right? That just won't happen. So if you're going to do that, then they're not going to accept them not playing. It's the same as Enzo Fernandez will have to play. Caicedo will have to play. And Nkunku will have to play. Palmer, purely because of how good he's been, will have to play. And those will have to play most games. Now, Donny says we will have like 70 games this year. I'm sure they can each play.
Yeah, no.
but Jackson will not want to play Conference League group stage. They're like, yeah, it's 70 games, but they're not 70 equal games. Like they're not just play FIFA career mode. Like FIFA career mode is the most furthest thing from reality. But even then, if you have a big name player who you give a crucial team role to, if you only play him in the FA Cup, they're gonna send you an email saying they're unhappy, because a player isn't going to want to play Conference League group stage and teams against League 2 teams in the FA Cup and be happy with that. It's not going to happen. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. Pies, just tell me how soon means. But yeah, I don't really know. Pies, do you have any more like final thoughts on this topic just before we finish off with a few more smaller ones?
Yeah, I got like 15 minutes. That's all right. But final thoughts. Me personally, I hope it happens, but I can see, I definitely can. I'm not like putting a blind eye to it, like, give me Osimhen, like, I need Osimhen. Like, I can see both sides to it, in terms of like, Jackson will not be the starter anymore, and I really like Nicholas Jackson. I think he has a lot of potential, but then, like, you know what I find funny is, like, we want this Samu guy, but then if we buy Osimhen, it's like, well, we absolutely, like, that's a signing you make to try and get top 4, right, to boost your hopes. But then at the same time, if we don't get Osimhen and you buy Samu, then like they can't be deluded enough to think 2 young strikers is going to be, more chance of getting us top 4 than someone like Osimhen, in my opinion. So that's why you would buy an Osimhen. So it's like, why the whole time have you wanted Samu? It's literally because of the price, right? It has to be, because, and that's what makes it interesting. Is like, well, now the price has dropped. Do you then go and do Osimhen? So let's see. I'll be very intrigued to see where this one goes, because I do feel like it's either gonna. I feel like this develops very quickly, or it just fizzles out and dies. I feel like there's no in between with this one. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the next few days.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on from the Lukaku topic. We've discussed that for plenty of time now. We need to talk about goalkeepers, because fucking hell, Chelsea are going crazy in goalkeepers. So a couple of days ago, Filip Jörgensen to Chelsea. Here we go. We got that. I didn't have time to stream since, unfortunately. So we're talking about it now. 24.5 million euros, supposedly. I thought it was 26 million euros, but regardless. for a talented Danish goalkeeper who's supposedly born in Sweden but plays for Denmark as well. So you can already question his personality. Why? I'm joking. That was a joke, all right? Don't call me negative again. I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Everything I've heard is like he suits Maresca ball by being able to pass out. Fantastic. But he doesn't actually seem to be very good at being a goalkeeper because everything he saves back into the middle of the box. And if you've ever watched a Premier League game, you know that's suicide. So do we want that? I now expect Sanchez to remain the number one goalkeeper at least until around Christmas. And then if Jörgensen pulls something out the bag, who knows? If another injury happens, who knows? But I'm not impressed. Dimitar, I'll go with you first so I can let Pys do the next two in a row. Are you impressed? I doubt you are.
No clue. I mean, again, lack of transfer philosophy. The last 6 months of the season, Petrovic performed well. Like, not well enough where you say he's a nailed-on starter, but at least where you make him the number 2. And if you could, you upgrade on him. And now they're getting rid of Petrovic, leaving the inferior Sanchez, and maybe even buying an inferior goalkeeper to Sanchez as his potential number 2. So it's a downgrade, I believe. Without having seen this kid play, I doubt that we will have a better goalkeeper this season, no matter who is in the goal, than Petrovic did last season. So it may sound a bit negative, like most things I say, but I'm not very positive about the upcoming season. I don't know. Yeah. I hope they prove me wrong.
It's the trick. At least he's a bit taller than Kepa. You know, that's at least something. But he seems to still be terrible on set pieces. So, you know, brilliant. Obviously, him being young, 22 for a goalkeeper is very young. The one thing we should remember here, Jörgensen is younger than Petrovic was when we signed him from the MLS. And at least Jörgensen has played a season of actual European high-level football and not just MLS kindergarten. Do you know what I mean? So I guess that is that positive. But yeah, Pys, where do you stand on it? Where do you stand on Jörgensen? Who do you expect to be the goalkeeper this season then, if we get him? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, this goalkeeper situation is not great. It's one of the ones I'm most annoyed with because I feel like, whatever you think on Pochettino, clearly, like, they thought, well, Petrovic is good enough. He's good for Pochettino, right? And then they get rid of Pochettino and they decide, actually, we want a different style of play. So then Petrovic suffers from that and has to leave the club because apparently he's not good enough to play Maresca ball. So you get rid of Petrovic after 1 year because you failed on the last coach and you want a different direction. So Petrovic gets discarded just because of that alone, right? Because they can't figure out what style of play they want to play, where it's possession or, So that in itself is bad. It's really, really bad squad planning to even buy Petrovic in the first place. I'm sure they'll argue that, he wasn't meant for the first team. He did really bad. What a load of bullshit. Like, honestly. Fact is, he overtook Sanchez. He did relatively well. And now you want to get rid of him because you fucked up on the last coach and you want a different direction. Jorgensen, I've been involved in a lot of streams. A lot of La Liga, people have been on, journalists. And, they tell me and others that, look, he's got potential, but a lot of them don't really understand why Chelsea have signed him. The only thing is he's good on the ball and he's a sweeper keeper, but he parries a lot of shots. He's not great on corners, and he had a lot of confidence issues at Villarreal as well. Like they say, he's a guy that needs to play a lot. So unless he's our number one, then I don't understand how he progresses and is good for us based off what.
And even if he is the number one, he will make one mistake and the stadium will start booing him, and then
he actually. I watched a La Liga documentary and they cover Jorgensen in one of the episodes. Actually, it's really interesting, and it's like an insight to the goalkeeper of Filip Jörgensen. And look, like he has a really supportive girlfriend and system around him, but he struggled a lot during the early part of the season with Villarreal. They started booing him, and he was like, I don't understand why they're booing me. I've come through their academy. But then later on in the season, he kind of turned it around and did decent. So I just don't really understand like why we need that situation at our club, because I highly doubt he's going to come into Chelsea and be much better than he was at Villarreal. So I don't really understand this one. Like, we're buying him because he's good with his feet. Okay, what about every other attribute then? You know, like it's just dumb. Like it's the same with Sanchez. He's good with his feet. Okay, Sanchez, like he did make.
And you know what? Remember back in 2019, we signed Kepa because he's good, or 2018, we signed Kepa because he was good with his feet. You still own Kepa for flip's sake. Like if that's the only criteria that matters, why are you buying anyone then?
I know, like as much as we can say on striker and everything, you know, goalkeeper is scaring the living daylights out of me this season because Sanchez is a mistake waiting to happen every single game.
Yeah.
Even if he does well. Like, even in the last preseason game, he made some incredible saves.
Yeah.
But
and
then
he
he
still
gives the
passed
ball
the ball straight to the opponent at least twice
he's
and
just
punted it out of play for another 4.
He's got the bozo gene in him every single game. And Jorgensen may not be an upgrade on Sanchez or Petrovic. Like, what the fuck? Like, honestly, what are they doing? They're investing so much in Jorgensen to be good. And to be, like, you know, into be top 4 contention goalkeeper, right? Like, I don't know, man. I don't want to judge the kid before he's played for us, but from everything I've heard from people that are very knowledgeable, and again, like, club to club doesn't translate. He could come here and be very good, but how he's been at Villarreal, I don't see him succeeding here. I really don't. I think he's a backup keeper at most. And then why not just keep Petrovic if that's the case? I just don't get it. I don't understand. We're spending money when we don't need to spend money. But I guess we do that every day anyway, so... Yeah,
exactly. And on that very note, because I don't really have much more to say, except, so Pys, if now that we have signed Jorgensen, we got the here we go, the medical was done yesterday or today or whatever it was, are you expecting Sanchez to be the number 1 going into the season, or do you think Jorgensen could actually take the number 1 spot before the season starts?
No, I think Sanchez will start as the number 1, but I do feel like Chelsea have bought Jorgensen to replace Sanchez. Because also, like,
what I think that they've done is they've now done exactly what they did with Sanchez to be behind Kepa initially last year. So, you know, before we loaned Kepa to Real Madrid and then frantically had to quickly sign Petrovic, the plan was for Sanchez to come in and provide competition for Kepa. With the plan, okay, we'll get rid of Kepa eventually, and then Sanchez becomes the number 1. And now I think that's exactly what we've done with Jurgensen. We've kind of brought him in to be competition for Sanchez. Then we sell Sanchez next year, and then we buy another goalkeeper next year. Either then a better one, if we have the financial capabilities by Champions League. And if we don't, we'll buy another one to add competition. And we'll just do the same thing year and year and year and year, because they clearly don't think that a consistent goalkeeper matters. That's the feeling I'm getting from the situation anyway. And on that note, you know, if some people might not have heard everything that's happened, we're not done on goalkeeper news, which you'd think is mental because we've just signed someone for 24.5 million who is, well, not great. But seemingly, we're now close to agreeing a deal with Genk for Mike Penders, an 18-year-old who is 6'7" already, which is like, that sounds like he wasn't performance-enhancing drugs, who is 6'7" at 18. But anyway, also, have you ever heard of anyone 6'7" and can pass a football? I haven't. So that doesn't sound like he's going to be great for Maresca. Obviously, I haven't watched him play, so he might be Messi on the ball. I don't know. But I've never heard of anyone with 6'7" and be Messi.
Messi with the size of Michael Jordan. Amazing.
That would be quite impressive. If he was Messi on that size, he might be the best athlete ever. But yeah, the funny thing was yesterday or 2 days ago, the rumor was 900,000 euros. All of a sudden, it's 20 million. What? How has this happened? And also, we're loaning him back straight to Genk, which would take up one of the 6 international loan spots that we flipping have. So surely just agree a deal for like a pre-agree a deal for like next year or in 2 years rather than buying and loaning back. Just save the international loan spots. No, surely. But Pys, I'll go with you first because I know you need to head off after that. But yeah, where do you stand on good old Mike Penders? Now, it's the same club that we signed Courtois from. So you're like, well, Courtois is the last time we had a good goalkeeper. For more than 5 months, because for 5 months, Mendy was incredible. But yeah, I mean, especially 3 days after getting a here we go for Jorgensen for 24.5 million euros, getting now this guy for 20 million euros. Sorry, we will have spent over 80 million euros on 4 goalkeepers in the space of 2 years. It's fucking insane. That is what that is. And none of them are good. Now, he might turn out to be good because he's so young, he might become good still. But the others, you can say for damn sure that none of Jurgensen or Sanchez is ever going to become a Courtois or an Alisson. That's for damn sure. They're never going to be the best goalkeepers in the world, even if they become good. So, do you know what I mean? But yeah. And he's only played one professional game of football, and we're paying 20 million.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
The
Do you know what
most
I mean?
expensive goalkeeper ever to come out of Belgium if this goes through. More than Verbruggen.
Wow.
More than
More than
Verbruggen
who? Verbruggen, yeah.
Verbruggen, yeah. It's just insane. Like you have to laugh at this point, honestly. You just have to laugh. Like, what the fuck is this? Honestly. Like, there's no point getting annoyed about it anymore. Just laugh through the pain. Like, add up what we've spent on goalkeepers. You could have had a Diogo Costa. You could have had a Maignan. We'll get to a point with goalkeepers, I'm pretty sure, where you could buy Maignan and Costa combined, honestly, for the amount we spent on these kids. It's ridiculous. Like,
literally
20 million euros. I don't even care if they amortize it over like 8 or 9 years. It's just fucking, it's ridiculous.
With those 80 million euros and all those wages, you could have just got Manuel Neuer in for 3 years on huge wages. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, no. He's too old.
The best passer that's ever existed in goal, by the way, Neuer is as well. I just want to add that as well. Like, it's not like you're, I don't know, getting Buffon who can't pass the ball, but is the best goalkeeper. No, Neuer would be that guy. I'm not saying you could even get him out of there. He's captain and everything. I know. I'm just saying 80 million on 4 goalkeepers, and I haven't even considered Slonina in that calculation either. Literally the next Slonina, who I never expect to play for Chelsea. But Pais, I know you need to head off, so I'm gonna let you go. Ladies and gentlemen, please do check out. Go on.
Sorry, just one more. Some breaking news from Fabrizio saying that agreement is close between Gallagher or between Atletico Madrid and Chelsea for Gallagher, and now it just depends on the player. 35, what is it, euros? You can get it up.
Yeah, that's euros. Yeah, that's euros.
Yeah, 35 to 40 million euros. So what's that, 30 to 35 mil pounds?
Yeah, but that is with add-ons included, so probably upfront 25 to 30, like it was rumored, and then let's say 5 million add-ons.
Probably. Now, I would highly assume that Gallagher accepts this. If Gallagher says no to this, as much as I kind of want him to stay, he is a bit of an idiot if he doesn't like. If Atletico Madrid really want you, then you're gonna get to play. You suit the manager perfectly, and you're going to a club where they appreciate players like you, and you're playing Champions League football. And you never know with Madrid and with Barcelona. I mean, Madrid just got Mbappe, so chances of winning the league probably quite slim. But you never fucking know. Do you know what I mean? When they won it in 2014, no one thought they would either. So
also in 2021 or 2020, they won it quite recently.
There, right? Like he's literally the next Trippier, is what he is. So yeah, in a way, obviously, I still don't really hope it happens. But if he stayed, he would never play because he's 6th choice midfielder now. Because I just don't think Maresca would get the freedom to even use him because of Dewsbury Hall, which is why I think they signed Dewsbury Hall, not because they think he's any good. But yeah, fair enough. Thank you for bringing that up, Pais. Pais, I have one last question for you, actually, that Josh in the chat asked me to ask you about. So I will, because I'm nice like that. You tweeted today at lunchtime that Chelsea submitted an offer for Maximilian Bayer, the Hoffenheim striker. Oh wait, does he play for Bochum? 2 blue shirts, so I'm not sure. But yeah, Plenty Goal obviously posted that. Plenty Goal, sometimes good, sometimes maybe shit. Do you know what I mean? To quote the famous Gennaro Gattuso. What do you make of this? Is this waffle? Is this real? What do you think?
Probably not true. I mean, I posted it because Plettenberg's good for Germany, but no one's, I feel like if Chelsea make an offer to a player, Fab's on it, Ornstein's on it, like it's just kind of weird. Seems maybe agent talk throwing our name in there. Interestingly, he does play on the left-hand side and also striker, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't personally. I would say it's not true, but we'll see.
I literally know nothing about him. He was in the Germany squad and came on, I think, in one of the group games, but that's it. So I don't know anything more than that. Just looking at this picture, he looks like he would get absolutely annihilated in the Premier League because my guy doesn't know what a muscle is. I would be slightly concerned for him in that sense. What else can I say? Pais, thank you very, very much for giving us your time. Me and Dimitar will finish off in the next 10-15 minutes. Thank you very much, Pais. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously check out Pais' links down in the description below. His Twitter, his playback, his website, londonsfirst.com. Check out all of those things. And Pais, thank you very much for giving us your time. And we'll chat to you soon.
Awesome. See you later, boys. Cheers.
Bye.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye.
Dimitar, a couple of other things. Obviously, sad for Gallagher, whatever whichever way you want to look at this topic. Just a couple of small pieces. Obviously, there was a few other reports out of Italy. They're saying on Osimhen, they're saying Napoli wants 70 million plus Lukaku, who's rated 30 million. So is it even that much cheaper? Obviously, there were some other reports that talk about 58 million plus the 30 million, which still adds to 88 million. It's still a lot, but are we talking 58 million pounds or euros? It's just a bit strange.
It's probably going to be the same price we paid for Mudryk, so it's not that expensive for Osimhen. I mean, like I said, if you look at the transfer in a vacuum, the price is fine. The price is not the issue. I believe it's the other things around the transfer.
Yeah, the wages in particular. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess I can bring this one up quickly. I touched on it earlier. Obviously, Jörgensen did his medical, but also Aaron Anselmino, a 19-year-old Argentinian centre-back from Boca Juniors who will remain with Boca Juniors at least until January. Obviously, when the Argentinian league runs in a different cycle to Europe, so they do from like March until November or whatever, I think.
Yeah.
So he might join next summer. He might join in January, whatever. In general, I think centre-back is the position where we fucked up the most in this ownership, because we've signed way too many average players, and now we have a squad stacked of average players that we can't get rid of. So I don't actually mind buying a young, talented centre-back who can hopefully displace these average ones that we have right now, because the only one I can really rate is Levi Colwill, and he's 21, 22, and has not had enough experience to be a good centre-back yet. Obviously, that applies to the other kid as well, who's 19. But yeah, I'm not too up in arms about this. I quickly want to talk about the Enzo Fernandez topic as well. Enzo Fernandez has yesterday, joined up with the team again. And I'm just going to read through what Nizar Kintella posted. There's been multiple posts from various people, but I think Nizar went into the most detail, which is why I decided to bring this one up on screen. He says, Enzo Fernandez has held talks with several French players in Chelsea's squad and apologized in person after being accused of uninhibited racism by teammate Wesley Fofana. The Argentina international 23 landed in Atlanta in the United States and addressed the video posted to his social media account. That's the part that annoys me, and because it just seems... Why can't we be truthful? It wasn't a video posted. It was a live stream and people in the background, and he sang along, but it wasn't him that started the song. Like, it's different choosing to post something or being live and something happening. It doesn't make it good and it doesn't excuse anything, but it's still different. It's like, maybe that's not the best analogy now, but it's like killing someone on purpose and killing someone, not on purpose. It's a little bit different, I think. But anyway, a video, it was a live stream, right? Which is alleged to have included racist and discriminatory chants by the French Football Federation. Not discriminatory chants by the French, but the French Football Federation have alleged it to include that. Just to be clear, the song calls into question the heritage of France's black and mixed race players, with Axel Disasi, Benoit Badiashile, Leslie Ugochukwu, Christopher Nkunku, Malo Augusto, and Wesley Fofana, all part of the traveling group on Chelsea's US tour. Several players involved are understood or is understood to have appreciated the apology, as manager Enzo Maresca is expected to confirm the return of his midfielder in a press conference today, a press conference that, by the way, Chelsea didn't show to anyone, which also brilliant. Fernandez has also offered to donate money to an anti-discrimination charity, which will be matched by Chelsea through the club's foundation, and the club have been impressed with their midfielder's behaviour since he returned and agreed to match the contribution. The matter is now internally considered closed. Now, it was more of a going back and like talking to Lewis on Twitter. Lewis is not happy with it yet. Now, seemingly some of the French, like black or mixed race French players in the squad, they seem to be. How much of that is the club telling them you need to be fine with this now, and how much they are truly fine with it, I don't know. No one will know. But for example, Lewis is not fine with it. Now, me as a white person, I am not in a position to judge whether any person of color should or should not be fine with this. It's a difficult situation for a white person to be in, where I'm like, okay, so some people affected are okay with it now to move on, and some are not. So what is right? I don't know. I genuinely don't know the answer to that question. What I will say is I didn't like the public apology that he did give. It felt like the most PR apology that he probably didn't write himself and was sent and told, post this, or someone that controls his social media posted for him, not even him himself. But I think the most important thing is still the apology to his teammates in person. Like, as much as I understand Chelsea, like he's a representative of the club, and Chelsea has a big fan base of various different races, colors, and backgrounds. So it's not just about the players that are affected; it's also about fans in a way. There's a few things I don't like about it. Like, why is he only apologizing to the French Chelsea players? What about the other French players? Like, is it just because they're teammates it matters? No. Like, surely, if anything, you should apologize to all of them. And I know, obviously, his public apology in a way does that, but I'm sure he can get the numbers of the other French players as well if he wanted to. So I think that maybe could still happen. I don't know if should he get a ban? Should he not get a ban? I don't know. I think it's so difficult for us, whether I'm white or not, because we aren't there. We are not a fly on the wall in the conversation between Enzo and Fofana and Reece James and whoever else was involved, and Axel Disasi playing a big role, supposedly as well, in trying to make things happen, essentially. So we weren't there. So if that apology was truly sincere, if they have spoken about it, if they have cleared things up and they are now fine with each other, I think I should be fine with it. But I wasn't there. So it's such a difficult situation to really have a conclusive opinion on as an outsider. So I have to go with what we get told. But like I just touched on, how much of now the players accepting the apology, how much of that is truly the reality and how much of that is, I'm not saying Chelsea are forcing them to do it, but
Oh, they are. I mean, I think it's
but
clear for
maybe not
everyone.
explicitly forcing them, you know what I mean? But as in, like, well, we're bringing Enzo back. He's the big guy.
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
not. So, like,
the thing is, everything that's being done is purely for PR. I think this is clear to everyone. And even if they don't accept the apology, even if there is some kind of trouble in the dressing room, they will make sure to put every information about this completely aside so it doesn't get out. So we will most probably never know the truth unless you meet Enzo on the street tomorrow or some of the French players. This is on that topic. On the topic of should anyone be offended or how should we feel about that, I guess it's for every single person to decide for himself. Like, let's say Fofana, a random name. He may decide he will never forgive Enzo for that, and that's his choice. Someone else may decide, I will forgive him. That's his choice as well. So the thing is, it was a very unfortunate event. Like, it was a live stream. It was not intentional. I don't believe that football chants in general, or any sort of chant and song you sing in such a atmosphere, should be taken seriously, because a lot of offensive things get sung, and a lot of people say, I would say, worse things than what was said in that song. But again, that's for everyone to decide for himself what are their boundaries, what they want to do. The bad thing for us is that this is a black mark on Enzo's record, which is not perfect as things stand. And this season, if for any reason he doesn't perform, he will have the biggest possible target on his back. And I think this is what should worry us as Chelsea fans, and probably this is what he should be worried himself about. Because even if one or two players decide not to forgive him, they will probably still play with him and put that aside publicly and just him privately don't talk to him. I mean, not that would be good to have such relationships in your workplace, but still, I guess that you can get over. But the giant target you have on your back, that will never go away. That will never go away probably in 20 years, even if he's retired. And this is the problem. And this is the situation, the type of situation that I really hate, because at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with what he did as a Chelsea player. It has also nothing to do with his footballing skills, and he and the club will suffer. And I just pray to God he has a good season now, so we can at least avoid that potential scandal. Because, like I said, if things go south, he will probably be the first person to get the blame, even if it's not his fault. And if it is his fault, oh my God, he will have to deactivate all of his social media accounts by September. So yeah, it's just a stupid situation.
Especially what you just talked about, the target on his back. That's why I just cannot believe how Argentina as a country and Argentina as a football team have handled the situation. Now, first of all, in terms of taking accountability, and also, like, Messi, I love Messi. Like, Messi is my GOAT. But the fact that Messi was so quick to comment on what happened at the Morocco-Argentina game at the Olympics, but didn't say a fucking word whether he was on that bus or not, about that happening, that the manager who was on the bus didn't say a fucking word about it, that the vice president essentially said big up Enzo and big up the team, fuck off everybody else, that the whole stadium of River Plate, when he went back there, like started singing the song. Argentina needs to do a lot of work, but that doesn't come from Enzo, and that doesn't come from Chelsea. So like people say, yeah, Chelsea should ban him. On the one hand, I get why people are saying this, but are we trying to punish an individual for a problem that is a nationwide issue, or to some extent a global issue? And do we think, okay, now we ban Enzo and that changes things now? That makes him regret it more? That makes others like him more? Like, what does that do? Like, what you need to do is try to work that the problem doesn't happen in the future. And until Argentina don't accept what situation they are in, like they literally sacked their secretary for sports or whatever it was, because he said Messi should come out and apologize in the name of the team. And he got sacked from his official government role for suggesting that. That shows you how big the problem in that country is.
Can you go and tell a certain country which has nothing to do with France historically? Also, I believe they never were like had colonial relations, war or stuff like that. They have nothing to do with France, and you have to essentially go there and tell them, hey, you have to do this or that, or you don't have to do this or that. I also find this a bit worrying in a global perspective, because if one country finds something offensive, does that mean that every country in the entire world should follow those rules? I mean, of course, it's a bit a political topic, but the thing is that the people in Argentina are definitely not sorry about it, and that's kind of their choice to do. Now, should they be punished worldwide? Now, who is to decide that? I mean,
the one
I don't want to sound...
FIFA for the last decade or more have run a no to racism campaign.
Yeah.
And FIFA,
I know, but can FIFA punish the country Argentina? I mean, can FIFA punish the prime minister of Argentina? For example,
they can punish the team. They could ban
that they can do. I mean, that they can do. Yeah, of course.
But I'm sure that would have a reaction. Now, would it have the reaction that it stops racism in Argentina? No. But it would probably stop them from doing it publicly anymore.
Well, yeah, that is for sure. But my problem with these issues is that I know this is a serious issue, but a lot of other issues get scraped under the carpet, and only some issues get like attention. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but a lot of countries got punished during the Euros for various stuff, for like using Nazi symbols or stuff like that. And in the Croatia Albania game, they sang literally "Hang the Serbians," and they got a ban for that. I mean, a financial ban for that, but they didn't get any other kind of ban for that. And I personally have a bigger problem with the host or parts of stadiums singing something like that instead of a bunch of lads on a bus celebrating a victory. I mean,
the only thing I would bring up on that topic is that whatever side of the opinion you are on that topic, that has historical
I know
for why that charge happened.
But
like
still,
you said, there is no real connection between France and Argentina. So they essentially did this baselessly, which
this is true, of course.
Part of it kind of makes it worse.
But
because whatever we think of it, I'm not Serbian, I'm not Albanian, I'm not in former Yugoslavia. I mean, as much as I might, I've done my research a little bit, I'm not really in that situation. But there is past things that happened, right?
Of course.
Nothing happened. They just racially picked out for their race why they are now meant to be highlighted.
That is true, and I agree.
But
for me personally, inciting or insinuating the inciting of violence is a bit worse for me personally. But the thing is, international scandals happen basically on the Twitter scale. Like the bigger the outrage, the more people react to it, and the thing that will generate the more outrage will get more popular. It's like, I mean, also like as far as someone said, they sang the same song after the 2022 World Cup, but maybe let's say 2 years ago, racism was not so prevalent in media as it is now, even though it's always getting more and more prevalent, but that's another story. So like, I am sure someone will think of other cases where there were famous people or famous persons like in relation to some racist scandal, and it just got swept under the rug. In this case, it was a boring summer. The Euros were over, the Copa America was over, and this story just like went viral. I think maybe in another day and age, this would just be like mentioned once and people will forget about it. But the commenting on the story antagonizes more people. I'm sure there are a lot of people, not only in Argentina, in South America, who are white, who maybe get offended because their singing offends other people. And there are people in Africa, for example, or people in France, in England, people of color, who get offended by this song. And the more we comment on it, the more people get offended, the more people get extremist opinions. And at the end of the day, it's something that should not happen. Sadly, did happen, but I don't know. I think the sooner this topic is over, the better for everyone. I know that will not happen, but yeah, sadly.
Yeah,
We live in a very extremist day and age.
Yeah, on the one hand, obviously, I agree with that. Moving on is, better for everyone, but also, is it? Because that's part, to some extent, it's okay. We lost our minds about it for 2 weeks now, and now 2 weeks have passed, so now we don't care about it anymore. So now,
no,
you know what I
but
mean?
The thing is, nothing will change anyway. I mean, even if you go and punish Enzo for 1 year out of football, if you punish the entire Argentinian national team for 1 year out of international football, nothing will change. And this is not to say that Argentinians are extremely racist. It's just, if it's something ingrained in your culture, if it's something you yourself don't think is offensive, which they obviously don't, then you cannot change that. And this is a fundamental issue when cultures clash and when such topics arise. It's not saying they are right, it's not saying they are wrong, but you cannot change their culture, whatever you want to do. I mean, to change their culture, you have to go there and colonize them.
Because cultures do naturally change over time.
Yes, but not from the outside and not without heavy intervention, and that is called colonialism. If the UK invaded Argentina tomorrow, in 200 years, the culture will be different. But I think you see the problem there with this, how this would happen. I mean, like I said, not saying they are right, but
yes, to some other extent, like I think Europe culturally has European countries to each other has made each other more culturally aware. So without that being it's kind of been a natural thing that's happened by European countries, people from different backgrounds, being so close together. But that's not the situation in Argentina. Argentina is ginormous compared to how big the country is. The population isn't even that big.
Yeah, and it's very who
are culturally almost the same.
Yeah.
If that's wrong, I apologize. As far as I know about it, they're culturally very similar. So yeah, it's. I mean, I do think that the FIFA, like I say, they've run a no to racism campaign for God knows how many years. Go to Argentina, try to spread some awareness, try to add some education into the younger generation in football teams in that country. And then, because this, like you said, these things will never change from one day to another. But if you educate the youth now, go 50 years into the future, their children of the now children will be already better educated, and that's how you slowly get rid of these kind of problems, but not from one day to another, not from 1 year to another.
That is true, but then they don't have. But for me, if they want to do it, they just have to go and say, okay, this is the ban for the Argentina international team, and this is final. Because, like you said, they've run this program for more than 10 years, probably 20 years, and now this international footballing racist scandal blows up, and FIFA does nothing, or seemingly do nothing. So, in some way, I think people should be also mad at FIFA because they're not holding their word. Because I can guarantee you, if my country, Bulgaria, that would get banned for about 10 years. But because it's Argentina and they're super famous, and they're Argentina, of course, world champions, Messi, blah, 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 they get like a bit of tolerance. And if you want to send a message, which is no to racism, blah, 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 and all the other things FIFA have said, then you have to stand by your words. And this is also another issue that I think doesn't help with these problems, is that most of what people and organizations say publicly is only to please the public. They don't want to act on it. They just want to have this virtuous picture for everyone to see that you are so good, you are so progressive, and then you don't do anything. Because, and actually no one talks about that. No one says, hey, FIFA, you're accountable because this is your message. Everyone is blaming either Enzo, either Argentina, either Messi, the prime minister of Argentina. Some people even blame Chelsea for some reason, I've seen on Twitter, but no one blames FIFA because at the end of the day, it's their decision. And whether you agree that Argentina should be banned or not, FIFA have to have that final say, and they have to have an official statement, at least, I believe.
Yeah.
Because
and they did supposedly start an investigation. I'm not sure if that investigation has concluded yet or not. I don't know. I also think it is, as much as we are Chelsea fans and as much as, like we discussed, Enzo has been highlighted and picked out and singled out. I think part of the biggest disgrace is that a lot of the other clubs know that their players were involved.
Yeah, no one does anything. Yeah.
Now, I know it was Enzo's life. I know. But the others were still there. Just because, like the phone, whose phone it is doesn't decide who sang the song. That's the relevant part, not whose phone was on an Instagram live. The relevant part is who sang the song. But yeah, now Wesley Fofana has deleted the video he posted on Twitter on Enzo Fernandez. Initially posted on his Instagram story, but he also posted on his Twitter. He's taken that down now. Again, whether he was told to do that by Chelsea or not, I don't know. The fact that this has happened now after Enzo's joined and supposedly spoke to them suggests certainly more that it wasn't just purely Chelsea take it down, because otherwise they might have done that earlier. But it is that. There's also the report from Ed Aarons, who does he work for? For The Guardian, who has written that supposedly the other players have accepted Enzo Fernandez's apology. So again, that is something like, I'm neither French nor black. So my perspective is those people that are offended have the decision-making power on whether we continue to be offended or not. And if they're not, I think we shouldn't. But that applies to us that are not directly affected. I'm not saying anybody that still feels hurt or offended or whatever else can't be. Of course you can. But I like how I have to judge somehow how I have to move forward with it.
This is very, very sensitive for everyone, because like we stated, the song was it's not a good song. Doesn't matter what you think, it's not a good song. And you don't have to be offended to say, maybe they should not have sang that on a live story, or maybe they should not have sang it at all. So not being or being offended, I think for us is irrelevant. The thing is how the players themselves feel. And at the end of the day, they should be professional about it regardless, because I am pretty sure that in most football clubs, in most teams, people are not best friends anyway. So having people who are not friendly with each other and are not like hanging out in their free time is kind of, I suppose, normal for a football team. The thing is, will this affect Enzo? Will this affect the other players? We don't know. And I think this is what we should be concerned about in the future. I don't think we should be, like I said, giving so much more thought to this story, because we can't change anything. And I personally am of the opinion that with such scandals, the worst thing you can do is you can just like blow them out of proportion. And that's exactly what happened, in my opinion. Now, someone might say it's not blown out of proportion. It's exactly as it should be. But I think that these topics deserve way less attention than they get.
Fair enough. So we also had this report from Kieran Gill here, who mentioned that Reece James and Axel Disasi were two lead figures in the consultation process with Chelsea's players to ensure Enzo Fernandez could rejoin the group. Now, for Reece, obviously big up in a way, but also, well, he's the captain, so it's kind of his job. So I almost want to pick out Disasi here more. If he did play a crucial role in this, then big up to him. Well done to him. You need players like this in your squad to take those kind of roles. And there you can see, guess who it was? The one that isn't the kid. Like all the others. Good.
Shocking, I know, yeah.
Yeah. Disasi, 26. He's an actual man. Shock. He's the one involved. Now, to be fair, Nkunku is also 26. But still, yeah. So big up Disasi for this. I criticize him a lot as a footballer, but big up Disasi for this. Yeah, I tried my best to speak about it, first of all, objectively, and to speak about it as from honest and as pure of a place as I can. If people have an issue with what I said, well, I don't know who you are and I don't know what your issue is. Please come to me and speak to me about it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's just it's a thing that shouldn't happen, and it's a thing that, as globalization happens, as much as Dimitar said earlier, different places have different cultures. If you take part in the globalization, then you can't just sit there and say, no, but this is our culture, we're not going away from it. If that's how you want to live, then don't take part in globalization. You can't take the benefits from globalization, but not take the kind of things that you need to do to kind of adapt yourself to being part of globalization. You can't just say, okay, yeah, I want internet, I want, global travel, I want this, I want that, but I don't want to, be nice to other people when they think it's not nice. That's not how it works. Either you stick to yourself, or if you want to play along with everybody, then play along with everybody. And don't think, yeah, but we think it's different here. Yeah, it's not your problem though. It doesn't matter if you think it's different. It's not you that's offended. It's the other people that's offended. So it matters what they think, not what you think. So from that perspective, I'm like, but education is the thing that changes it. Not bans, not punishments, not fines. They do fuck all. None of that does anything. The only thing that can slowly improve these things is education. And you can see that has happened in a lot of places in the world, that has taken effect already. In other places that hasn't taken effect yet. Maybe it will never, maybe it will. Yeah, but it's very much a tricky subject. To take it back to a Chelsea perspective, will we sign Osimhen? Will we not? Conor Gallagher is seemingly now going to Atletico Madrid, which I do find sad. But at the same time, like I say, since Dewsbury Hall was signed, we all knew that this would happen. So what can I say? I'm not going to sit here for 3 years and cry about it, but a part of me still wants to. And when we sit here next year and don't finish better than last season, we will say, well, shouldn't have sold Gallagher. Shouldn't have sold Chalobah, should we?
You and I will be the first to say that.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this one up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in, and especially if you've stuck around until now. Subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Would be massively appreciated. Hit that like button on your way out. That would also be fantastic. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea. Upwards and onwards. Still kind of downwards and backwards, but today was a bit of a better day, so I'm going to stick to upwards and onwards, and we will see you next time.
Bye, guys.